Nora had never imagined that her wedding night would come with a life-altering question. The wine was still settling in her stomach, the candles flickering faintly in the master bedroom, when Pella, her ever-charming husband, decided it was the perfect time to lay down a little marital wisdom. "Babe," he began, sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to look serious, but somehow still managing that infuriating, irresistible smile. "I think maybe you should quit your job." Nora froze mid-sip of water. "Excuse me?" she asked, hoping he had mispronounced something. Maybe he meant quit stressing. That would make sense. "No," he said, leaning closer, voice soft but urgent. "I mean, stop working. Focus on us, on the marriage, the family, the kids." Nora blinked. Slowly. Once. Twice. She tried to process the request. "Stop working so I can—" "What? Sit at home, wait for you to come back from your non-stop travel schedule, and bake cookies while reading bedtime stories to our imaginary future kids?" Pella laughed. "Something like that. But seriously, Nora, our marriage deserves attention. You deserve attention. And if we want children, well, you know how that works." Nora narrowed her eyes, the sarcasm practically dripping off her tone. "Ah, yes, the classic quit your job and devote yourself to me speech. That one never gets old, especially after only one night of marriage." But she knew Pella. Oh yes, she knew him. He wasn't just saying this out of whimsy. Pella, her brilliant, ambitious, magnetic Pella, had a schedule that could make anyone dizzy. As marketing director, he travelled almost non-stop. 1 week in Lagos, 2 days in Abuja, a conference in Port Harcourt, a client meeting in Enugu. Sometimes he barely stayed 5 days in a month. And yet there he was, asking her, pleading, demanding in that subtle way he always did. And Nora, despite all her sarcasm and pride, had to admit he had a point. She crossed her arms, tapped her chin, and pretended to think. "Let me consider this carefully," she said, voice dripping with mock gravity. "You want me to give up the career I've worked my entire adult life for because you travel a lot, because your job is exhausting, and because you're too busy to spend more than a week in a row with your wife?" Pella didn't flinch. He only smiled. "Exactly. Isn't it obvious?" Nora rolled her eyes, but something in her heart twisted. Maybe it was obvious. Their marriage wasn't just about love. It was about presence, attention, partnership. And maybe, just maybe, she could let go a little. It wasn't an immediate decision. She didn't just hand in her resignation the next morning. Oh, no, Nora was not that impulsive. She let it simmer, observed, calculated, watched how Pella left early on Monday, returned late on Friday, sometimes missing dinner entirely, only phoning to ask if she has eaten. She measured his commitment against her own need for balance, and slowly, gradually, she realized that maybe quitting wasn't quitting love. It was investing in it. 3 months later, the timing fell perfectly. Nora had confirmed her pregnancy. That evening, she sat across from Pella at the dining table, hands resting gently on her growing belly. "All right," she said softly. "I'll stop working. I'll focus on us. On this life we're building. And yes, on the kids." Pella's face lit up. He reached across the table and took her hand, a rare tenderness in his usually busy eyes. "You have no idea how much this means to me." And for the next 5 years, life moved along predictably. Beautifully, in fact. Their relationship remained cordial, sometimes even warm. They joked, laughed, argued playfully. They shared a joint account, a joint life, a joint happiness that most people would kill to have. Nora often thought about how life had given her exactly what she wanted. Career paused, family thriving, love intact. The chaos of motherhood, the joy of seeing her children grow, the comfort of a husband who, despite absences, still made her feel central to his life. It was almost perfect. Almost. Then one ordinary afternoon, Nora was playing with the kids. Laughter echoed through the living room as toy blocks tumbled, giggles filled the air, and everything felt like it should forever. Her phone rang. The screen flashed. Pella's office. Nora frowned. Her husband was away on a 3-day trip. This was odd. Usually calls from his office were routine. Sign this, check that, or client meeting update. But something about the tone of this call felt different, urgent. She picked up. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. "Is this Mrs. Nora Pella?" "Yes," she said. A twinge of unease knotted in her stomach. "Ma'am, we need you to come to the office immediately. It's regarding your husband." Nora blinked, thinking she misheard. "My husband?" she asked, tilting her head. "Pella, what happened?" Silence. Then, with a voice careful, clinical, almost rehearsed, came the words that made her heart falter. "We need you to come now." And just like that, the ordinary afternoon, blocks, giggles, sunlight streaming through the window, turned into something unrecognizable. Nora didn't scream. She didn't cry, yet, but a cold weight settled over her chest. She didn't even remember grabbing her bag. 1 minute she was on the floor, laughing with her children. The next minute she was standing in the middle of the living room, phone pressed to her ear, heart pounding like it was trying to escape her chest. "Regarding your husband." Those words kept echoing in her head as she hurriedly strapped the kid's sandals, hands shaking so badly she put the left shoe on the right foot twice. No, this must be a mistake," she muttered to herself, forcing a smile at the children. "Daddy is fine. Mommy just needs to go out small." She called her neighbour. She didn't explain. She couldn't explain. Her car screeched out of the compound like it was late for its own funeral. Traffic felt personal that day. Every red light insulted her. Every slow driver felt like an enemy sent to test her patience. "Move," she shouted at no one, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Please just move." Her phone rang again. Unknown numbers. She ignored them. She needed answers, not noise. By the time she reached Pella's office, her heart was already racing ahead of her body. The place was chaos. People stood in clusters, whispering like market women, sharing forbidden gossip. Some staff pretended to be busy, but their eyes followed her every step. Others avoided her completely, like grief was contagious. She walked straight to the receptionist. "My husband," she said, breathless. "Where is my husband?" The woman looked at her, then looked away. That was when Nora knew, not because of words, but because of silence. "What happened?" Nora demanded, voice shaking. "Where is Pella?" One man cleared his throat. Another woman wiped her eyes dramatically. Then a senior staff member stepped forward, adjusting his tie like he was preparing for a board meeting, not a tragedy. "Madam, there was an incident," he said carefully. "Your husband collapsed." No, collapsed. Such a small word for something that suddenly felt so heavy. "Collapsed how?" Nora asked. "Where is he now?" "He has been moved to a private hospital," the man replied. Nora didn't wait to hear the rest. She turned and ran. The private hospital looked too clean for bad news. The floors shined, the nurses smiled, the air smelled of disinfectant and lies. Nora rushed to the front desk. "My husband, Pella, he was brought here from his office." The nurse typed something, frowned, typed again, then looked up. "You'll have to wait," she said. "Wait," Nora repeated. "For what? I'm his wife." The nurse exchanged glances with another staff member. "I'm sorry, madam. You're not allowed in." Nora laughed. She actually laughed. "Is this a joke?" she asked, looking around. "I carried this man's children in my womb. I sleep beside him. But I'm not allowed to see him?" "Madam, please calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," Nora snapped. "Tell me why you're blocking me from my husband." Security appeared, 2 large men who looked like they had been waiting for her to lose patience. "The family has given instructions," the nurse said. Nora blinked. "Family? I am his family." The nurse lowered her voice. "His mother is on the way." And just like that, Nora understood something very bitter. In moments like this, love doesn't matter. Marriage doesn't matter. Only blood suddenly counts. She paced the waiting area like a trapped animal, staring at every door, hoping Pella would walk out and laugh and say, "Relax, it was just stress." Her phone buzzed. Her mother-in-law. Nora hesitated before picking up. "Hello, Mama." "You wicked girl," the woman screamed, not even allowing Nora to finish greeting. "So you have finally succeeded." Nora froze. "Mama, what are you saying?" "You killed my son," her mother-in-law shouted. "You and your modern lifestyle, overworking him, stressing him, turning him into your walking ATM. Nora's mouth fell open. "Mama, please, I just got here. They won't even let me see him." "As it should be," the woman snapped. "According to our tradition, a young wife has no right to see her husband in this condition." Nora felt dizzy. What condition? Silence. Then the words fell like stones. He is gone. The hospital corridor suddenly tilted. Nora grabbed the chair beside her before her legs gave out. Gone! How? She whispered. Don't pretend, her mother-in-law continued. If you had supported my son like a proper woman, this would not have happened. Nora swallowed hard. Mum, I quit my job years ago because he begged me to do so. Lies, the woman hissed. Women like you bring bad luck. Now listen carefully. Nora's heart pounded as the instructions came, cold, firm, rehearsed. You are not allowed to cry in public. You are not allowed to see his body. You are not allowed to ask questions. Your duty is simple. Support financially. Nora almost laughed. Support financially so she could pay for a goodbye she wasn't allowed to witness. You will send money, her mother-in-law continued, for burial arrangements, for traditions, for rites. That is all you are good for now. The call ended. Just like that, Nora sat there staring at her phone, wondering how love could turn into accusation so fast, how marriage could dissolve into rules she never agreed to, how grief could be controlled by tradition. She looked around the hospital one last time. She never saw Pella, not his face, not his body, not even a confirmation, only instructions. And somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice whispered, "This doesn't feel right." But grief doesn't always give you the luxury of questions. Sometimes it only hands you a bill and calls it tradition. Nora was still sitting on the edge of the hospital chair when the call dropped. Her phone slipped from her hand and landed softly on the floor. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. People walked past her like she was invisible. That was the first lesson grief taught her. She didn't cry immediately. Shock has a way of freezing emotions. It locks your tears behind your ribs and tells your heart to wait. By evening, instructions started coming in from people who suddenly remembered they were family. The burial had to be done quickly. Tradition demanded it. No delays, no arguments, and of course, no mercy. Nora was taken back to the house she once called home. Not because she was welcome, no. It was simply the most convenient place to gather money. The same house where she laughed with Pella. The same walls that heard their private jokes. Now it smelled like strangers and judgment. His mother sat in the living room like a queen presiding over a fallen kingdom. "You will pay," she said flatly, not even looking at Nora. "My son deserves a befitting burial." Nora nodded. She had learned quickly that silence was safer than explanations. That night, she opened their joint account. The numbers stared back at her. 5 years of savings, 5 years of planning, 5 years of trust. She emptied it, not for herself, not for the children, but for a goodbye she wasn't allowed to witness. When the money still wasn't enough, his mother clicked her tongue in irritation. "Is that all?" she asked. "Did my son marry a beggar?" Nora said nothing. She went into the bedroom and opened her jewellery box. Gold bracelets Pella bought after their first child. Diamond earrings from their anniversary. A necklace he once said made her look like a queen. She sold them all. Piece by piece. Memory by memory. Each item left her hand with a small sting, like grief reminding her it was still alive. By the third day, Nora was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. She hadn't slept. She hadn't cried properly. She moved like someone underwater, slow and numb. During burial preparations, women whispered behind her, "She didn't cry enough. Her eyes are too dry. Maybe the mother is right." Nora heard everything. She just didn't respond, because grief had taught her a second lesson. Sometimes defending yourself only feeds the wolves. The night before the burial, his mother called her aside. "You will leave this house after tomorrow," the woman said casually, like she was reminding her to take out the trash. Nora looked up. "Leave?" "Yes," the woman replied. "This house belongs to my son, and now that he is gone, it belongs to me." Nora swallowed. "But this is our home." His mother laughed, a sharp, humourless sound. "Our?" she repeated. "Did you build it? Or did my son build it before he married you?" Nora opened her mouth, then closed it. She remembered every night she stayed awake while Pella travelled, every sacrifice, every time she chose family over self. Apparently, none of that counted. "This is the only thing my son left for me," his mother continued. "You will pack your things after the burial." "Just like that?" Nora nodded. Because what else could she do? The burial day arrived. She stood at a distance, dressed in black, watching men lower a coffin she had paid for into the ground. She wasn't allowed to step closer, wasn't allowed to cry loudly, wasn't allowed to speak. She felt like a guest at her own loss. When the last prayer was said and people began to disperse, his mother turned to her. "You can go now." That was it. No thank you, no acknowledgement, no mercy. That evening, Nora packed her life into 2 suitcases, 5 years of marriage reduced to clothes, documents, and memories she couldn't fold away. Her children slept on the bed, unaware that home was no longer home. As she stood by the door for the last time, Nora looked around the living room. The silence felt heavy, but familiar. She had learned her 3rd lesson. When people take everything from you, they expect you to break. But sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is survival. And Nora survived. After the burial, life didn't pause. That was the most painful part. The world didn't stop because Nora's heart had cracked open. The sun still rose, children still laughed outside, people still complained about traffic and food prices. Only Nora's world had ended. She moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. 2 rooms, thin walls, and a silence so loud it hurt her ears. No generator humming, no house help moving around, no familiar voice asking, "What did you cook today?" Just quiet. The children asked questions she didn't have answers to. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming back? Why are we not going home?" She learned to smile through pain. "Daddy is resting," she would say, pulling them close. "And this is home now." At night, when the children slept, Nora sat on the floor with her back against the wall. That was when grief spoke the loudest. She replayed everything. The phone call, the hospital doors, the cold voice of her mother-in-law, the coffin she wasn't allowed to touch. Sleep became a stranger. When she did sleep, nightmares came. She would wake up gasping, heart racing, calling Pella's name before remembering. Again, morning always came too fast. Money became another enemy. The joint account was empty. Her jewellery was gone. Her job was history. She applied for small jobs, rejected politely or ignored completely. Overqualified, underqualified. "We'll call you." Nobody ever called. Neighbours whispered. Some were kind. Some pretended. Others were cruel. That's what happens when you depend on a man. See why women should keep their jobs? Nora nodded and said nothing. Silence had become her shield. Her phone stopped ringing. Friends who once filled her house with laughter disappeared. Invitations dried up. Sympathy messages slowed, then stopped. Grief, she learned, has an expiry date for outsiders, but not for the one living inside it. One afternoon, while washing clothes by hand, her arms aching, she paused and stared at the water. "Is this my life now?" she wondered. She remembered boardroom meetings, confidence, a version of herself who spoke boldly and laughed freely. That woman felt like a stranger. Some days Nora barely spoke at all. She focused on routines. Wake up, cook, clean, survive. Not live, just survive. At night, she sat by the window and watched lights flicker in other people's homes. Families eating together, couples laughing. Life moving on without her permission. That was when the tears finally came. Quiet, controlled, no audience. She cried for the life she lost, the marriage she believed in, the love that left her empty-handed. But even in her brokenness, something inside Nora refused to die. A small, stubborn voice whispered, "You are still here." So she started small. She took free online courses late at night, updated her CV quietly, saved every little money she could. No announcements, no complaints. Just progress in silence. Because Nora had learned another lesson. When life strips you naked in public, rebuild yourself in private. And slowly, painfully, she did. Months passed. Not the dramatic kind where everything suddenly gets better. The quiet kind. The slow, dragging kind. The kind where pain doesn't scream anymore, it just sits beside you like an unwanted roommate. Nora settled into routine. Wake up early, prepare the children for school, cook simple meals, stretch money like rubber band. Some days were manageable, some days felt like punishment. She eventually found a small remote job. Nothing fancy, nothing close to what she once earned, but enough to keep food on the table. Enough to remind her that she still had a brain, not just grief. The children adjusted faster than she did. Children always do. They laughed again, they made new friends, they stopped asking too many questions. And that strangely hurt more than the questions. At night, when the house went quiet, Nora finally had time to think. She sat with her phone a lot. Not because she was lonely. Okay, maybe a little, but because scrolling required no emotional strength. You didn't have to explain yourself to social media, you just watched other people live. Weddings, vacations, engagement announcements. God is good captions everywhere. She sometimes laughed bitterly. God was clearly busy with other people. Some nights, memories crept in uninvited. She would see a man walking ahead of her with the same build as Pella, and her heart would jump just once before reality slapped her back. Grief had become sneaky. It didn't knock anymore. It just entered. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Nora lay on her mattress, scrolling aimlessly. Her thumb moved automatically. Videos, pictures, random lives she didn't care about. She wasn't looking for anything. That's how life usually does it. It finds you when you're not searching. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had reacted to an old photo of her and Pella. She stared at it for a moment, then locked her phone. No, she whispered. Not tonight. She had promised herself something months ago. No more digging into the past. The past had already taken enough. Instead, she opened another app. Travel videos, lifestyle clips, people living large. She watched without emotion, just noise to distract her mind. A video played longer than the others. A group of people laughing, bright lights, music in the background. Nora almost skipped it, almost. Something about the voice in the video felt familiar. She frowned slightly. Why does this sound like... She stopped herself and shook her head. Grief plays tricks. Loneliness amplifies imagination. She scrolled past it, her heart beat faster than it should have. She closed the app and placed the phone face down. Enough, she said aloud to the empty room. You're tired. Sleep came slowly, but peace didn't. That night she dreamed of a crowd, laughter, music, a face she couldn't quite see. She woke up with her heart racing. Morning came, life continued. Breakfast, school run, work emails. But something had shifted, quietly, subtly, like a loose thread waiting to be pulled. Nora didn't know it yet. She only knew one thing. The silence she had grown used to felt slightly disturbed. And sometimes besties. Life doesn't announce change with noise. Sometimes it just clears its throat. As usual, that morning started like every other. Laptop open, tea gone cold beside her, children already off to school. She sat cross-legged on the bed, typing away, eyes jumping between emails and spreadsheets. Work was the only thing that kept her mind disciplined. As long as she focused, her thoughts behaved. Her phone buzzed beside her. She ignored it. Buzzed again. She sighed. 5 minutes. She muttered, clicking send on her last task before picking up the phone. Social media opened automatically. Muscle memory. She wasn't even interested, just scrolling while her brain rested. Videos flew past, a cooking clip, a prank, someone dancing for no reason. Then her thumb slowed, not stopped, just slowed. The video on the screen showed a beautifully decorated hall, white flowers everywhere, fairy lights, soft music in the background. A caption flashed boldly, live pre-wedding shoots, United Kingdom. Nora almost scrolled past, almost. Then the camera shifted. A man laughed in the background. That laugh, her chest tightened. She sat up straighter. The video zoomed in slightly, catching the groom adjusting his suit, smiling shyly as someone teased him off camera. Nora's fingers went cold. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She leaned closer to the screen. Same height, same shoulders, same way of tilting his head when he laughed. Her heart started beating like it had just remembered how. This is not funny, she muttered, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm tired. I'm hallucinating, she rubbed again. Harder. Then she whispered the words that scared her the most. Is this my Pella? The video continued. The man turned slightly, smiling at someone behind the camera. The angle revealed his face fully. Nora's breath caught. Same nose, same smile, same small dimple that appeared when he laughed. Only the name in the caption was different. Different name. Different country. Different life. Her stomach twisted. Her first instinct was denial. No, she said out loud. This is impossible. Many people look alike. She dropped the phone on the bed like it had burned her. Her heart pounded. She stood up and paced the room. This is grief, she told herself. This is what happens when you miss someone too much. She picked up the phone again, watched the clip, paused it, zoomed in. Her hands began to shake. The camera briefly showed a banner behind the groom. Congratulations to the groom and bride-to-be. Perfect match. The bride stood beside him, smiling brightly. Nora didn't look at the bride. She couldn't. Her eyes were glued to the man, her man, or the man she buried. Her ears rang. The world narrowed. She pressed the save button. Not dramatically, not shaking, calmly, like someone securing evidence, just in case. The caption scrolled again. Streaming live from Manchester, United Kingdom. United Kingdom, not a dream, not a memory, not a hallucination, a place, a location. Her heart thumped painfully. She checked the page. Public, active, recent uploads. This wasn't an old video. This wasn't recycled content. This was happening now. Nora locked her phone, sat down slowly and laughed. A dry, confused laugh that surprised even her. Okay, she said softly to the empty room. Okay, Nora, breathe. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her mind raced faster than her heart. Questions tried to line up, but none made sense. How? Why? Who? She looked at the clock. The children would be home soon. Life didn't pause for confusion. She stood up, washed her face and returned to her laptop. Work stared back at her blankly. For the first time in months, she couldn't concentrate because something had cracked, not broken. Cracked. And once doubt enters, it doesn't leave quietly. Nora couldn't sleep that night, not because she was afraid, not because she was nervous, but because her brain was replaying that video clip on loop. Like a match someone lit inside her head and refused to let it go out again and again and again. Her eyes were tired, her heart was tired. Even her soul felt heavy with questions that had no answers yet. She paused the video again. There it was. That smile, that way he tilted his head. That laugh she knew like the back of her hand. Her fingers hovered over the screen. You look exactly like him, she whispered, but you can't be him. Still, she saved everything. The address, the date, the location. Manchester, United Kingdom, 24th December. Her breath steadied. What if, she said softly, like saying it out loud would make it real. What if I go? She did the unthinkable. She bought the ticket. Her heart thumped loudly when she landed. Her palms were sweaty, but her steps were steady. She told no one, not the children, not even her closest friend. This was something only she could face. At the wedding hall, the music played softly, acoustic guitar, something calm, something joyful. People were dressed in their Sunday best, smiles everywhere, like happiness was mandatory. Nora stood at the back, not afraid, not confident, just terrifically certain, because she already knew what she saw. The pastor was speaking. If anyone knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony. That line echoed in the air like time had slowed, and that's when Nora walked forward, step by step, heart pounding, breath sharp, everything quiet, except her racing thoughts. The congregation noticed first. Heads turned, whispers began. Who is she? Is she supposed to be here? Is she with the groom? The pastor paused. The music stopped. The moment stretched like a rubber band pulled too far. She only lifted something in her hand, a funeral program. the one from her husband's burial, the one she paid for, the one she wished she would never see again. But now she held it high, calm, steady, like it was an evidence board in a courtroom. She walked up to the front. The crowd gasped. The bride's smile faltered. The pastor blinked rapidly, unsure if he was hearing wrong. Nora stood in front of everyone, her voice honest, clear, and heavy with truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," her eyes met the groom's, the man who looked exactly like the one she buried. Her voice cracked once, just once, before regaining strength. "This man is my husband." She lifted the funeral program higher. "The very man I buried 6 months ago." A pin could drop and make noise in that silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then the bride gasped. Her eyes flew open. She clutched her chest, and just like that, she collapsed. The aisle turned into chaos. Gasps, screams, people rushing forward. Someone shouted, "Stop the wedding! What is happening?" The groom, Pella, was frozen, eyes wide, breath shaking, staring like someone saw a ghost wearing his face. "Nora!" he screamed, not loudly, just deeply. The kind of cry that suddenly stripped away every polite social rule in the room. The bride's parents shook their heads violently. "What is she talking about?" they yelled. "This is our son-in-law! This is our daughter's wedding!" But Nora didn't step back. Her knees trembled, but her eyes didn't. She showed the burial program again, slowly, firmly. Every eye in that hall was on her. Some hands covered mouths. Some turned away. Some whispered, "Is this really happening?" The pastor raised his voice, "Please." Everyone remained calm. Not when reality felt like it was tearing itself apart right before them. The bride was on the floor, breathing because she was conscious, but frozen in shock. The groom stood rigid, like someone caught in a nightmare that suddenly became public. The guests were shouting at each other. Cameras whipped out. Phones recorded. Live stream started. Someone gasped, "Is she accusing the groom of faking his death?" Another voice, "Is he a ghost? Is this a scam?" And someone else, "What kind of tradition allows a woman to interrupt a wedding with a burial program?" Nora didn't answer the noise. She locked eyes with Pella, not with the bride, not with the crowd, just him. As if her entire story, her pain, and her weeks of silence depended on one moment in front of him. That moment wasn't calm, it wasn't pretty, but it was the moment she decided, this time, she won't stay silent. As soon as the bride collapsed and Nora's words settled into the air like smoke, everything moved fast. Too fast for lies to rearrange themselves. The bride's parents were the first to act. They weren't shouting, they weren't confused, they were angry. The kind of anger that comes when rich people realize they have been played. "This wedding is over," the bride's father said coldly, pulling out his phone. "Call the police, now." Pella stepped back instinctively. "No, wait," he stammered. "This is a misunderstanding." But misunderstandings don't come with funeral programs. Security blocked the exits. Guests whispered wildly. Phones were already live. The video was spreading faster than truth ever needed to. By the time the police arrived, the groom was no longer the center of attention. He was the suspect. Nora stood quietly as officers handcuffed Pella. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She had already done her screaming in private. As they led him away, his eyes searched for her. "Nora," he whispered. "Please." She said nothing. Some conversations end without replies. 2 days later, the courtroom was packed. Media, observers, people who came for justice, and people who came for entertainment. Pella sat in the dock, no longer in a wedding suit. No flowers, no applause, just a man and the weight of his choices. The judge asked calmly, "Do you understand the charges against you?" Fraud, identity falsification, emotional deception, illegal relocation, false declaration of death. Pella nodded slowly. "Yes," he said hoarsely. When asked to explain himself, he hesitated, then sighed. And for the first time since the wedding chaos, he spoke, not as a groom, not as a husband, but as a tired liar. "Back then, in Nigeria," he began, voice low, as desperate. The courtroom went quiet. "One day," he continued, "I saw an advert online." He paused, shaking his head slightly, like he couldn't believe his own story. It said, "A Nigerian lady is looking for a black husband." Murmurs filled the room. Pella swallowed. The qualifications were clear, he said. He raised his fingers and counted them slowly. Willingness to relocate. Must be single. Not even divorced. No children. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. Then the benefits. He looked up briefly. A ready-made job. Marriage into a powerful family. Wife is the daughter of a CEO. Soft life. The courtroom buzzed. Pella's shoulders slumped. I wanted that life, he admitted. I wanted to escape everything I was. The judge asked, and your wife in Nigeria? Pella's eyes flickered just once. I love the package, he said quietly, but there was only one way to qualify. The room went dead silent. I had to be dead. Nora's fingers curled tightly around each other. So, he continued, voice breaking now, I faked my death. Gasps echoed. I told myself it was the only way out. The judge leaned forward. You abandoned your wife, your children. Pella nodded. Yes. And you let her bury you? Another nod. Yes. Nora finally closed her eyes. The verdict. The judge didn't delay. The courtroom stood as he delivered the sentence. For fraud, deception and identity falsification, the court sentences you to 30 years imprisonment. A gasp ran through the room, and upon completion of your sentence, the judge continued, you will be deported to Nigeria. The gavel struck, just like that. The soft life ended. Pella didn't collapse, he didn't beg, he only bowed his head. Because some dreams come with prison bars. Outside the courthouse, Nora stood quietly as reporters tried to surround her. She raised one hand. I didn't come for revenge, she said calmly. I came for truth. Then she walked away. Her steps were slow but steady. For the first time in a long while, her shoulders didn't feel heavy. She had spoken. She had stood. She had survived. Just as she reached the courthouse exit, a gentle voice called out behind her. Please, Mrs. Nora. She turned. The bride's family stood there, no longer dressed in celebration, no longer angry, just human. Our daughter, the bride's mother said softly. She asked to see you, just for a moment. Nora hesitated. She had nothing left to fight for, but she nodded. The bride sat quietly in a private room. No makeup, no veil, no title. Just a woman whose future cracked open in one afternoon. When she saw Nora, she stood up slowly. I'm so sorry, she said, voice trembling. I truly didn't know. I swear on everything I hold dear. Nora studied her face. There was no arrogance there, no competition. Only shock and gratitude. You saved me, the bride continued. You didn't just stop a wedding. You stopped my life from being built on a lie. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I admire your boldness. Many women would have stayed silent. Nora exhaled slowly. Silence almost buried me too, she replied quietly. The bride reached into her bag and brought out an envelope. This is not compensation, she said quickly. Nothing can compensate pain, but please take it for your children, for a fresh start. Nora hesitated, but then accepted it. Thank you, she said sincerely. The bride nodded. If you ever choose to relocate to the UK, my family will support you, and you deserve a better life. For the first time in months, Nora smiled fully. 24 hours later, the story exploded. News headlines, television interviews, social media debates. A man who died, arrested at his wedding. Fake death, real prison. Widow turns up at wedding with burial program. Nora didn't watch. She had already lived it. That same evening, her phone rang. A number she hadn't seen in a long time. Pella's mother. Nora stared at the screen, then answered. My daughter. The old woman cried. Please forgive me. Nora listened quietly. I knew, the woman confessed. I knew about his plan. I thought his new life would give soft life, never imagined it would end like this. Nora closed her eyes. Please, the woman begged, talk to the bride. Mandy Newton, ask her family to release my son. Nora smiled softly. I would have done that for you, she said calmly. But I can't influence a UK court decision. Silence followed. The call ended. Some apologies come too late. 2 weeks later, 2 suitcases again, but this time hope was packed inside them. Nora and her children boarded a flight, not running away, but moving forward. A new country, new opportunities. New identity, not built on lies. As the plane took off, Nora looked out the window and whispered goodbye. Not to a man, but to a chapter. Somewhere else. Behind cold prison walls, Pella sat quietly. No phone, no freedom, no soft life, only time. Time to remember every lie, every betrayal, every choice. He finally understood. Faking death doesn't erase responsibility, it only postpones judgment. Hello viewers, thank you for staying with us till the end of this powerful story. If this story touched your heart, shook your thoughts, or opened your eyes in any way, then it was worth telling. Moral lessons. Life teaches us that not everyone who smiles with us is honest with us. Silence may help you survive for a while, but truth is what finally sets you free. Never build your life on lies, because lies always collapse, no matter how far they travel. And to every woman watching this, your voice matters. Your pain is valid. Your courage can change your destiny. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with your friends and loved ones, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional, inspiring, and thought-provoking stories. Don't forget to comment below. Tell us what you think in your own language. I really want to hear from you, besties. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and always choose truth.